On the edge of a small Minnesota River town stands a rock that has watched over the Mississippi for close to 500 million years. The Dakota people call it He Mni Can, and they have held it sacred for longer than anyone can say. Henry David Thoreau climbed it near the end of his life. An entire industry tried to carve it away, and the townspeople rose up to save it. Today we are climbing Barn Bluff in Red Wing, Minnesota, from the streets below to the prairie on its summit. Come along. Red Wing sits in Goodhue County in southeastern Minnesota, on the west bank of the Mississippi River, about 50 miles downstream from St. Paul. Right at the edge of downtown, Barn Bluff rises nearly 400 feet above the water, a long freestanding ridge of stone with the river wrapping around its northern face. The city protects it today as He Mni Can Barn Bluff Regional Park. Our route this morning is a loop of about 4 1/3 miles, climbing from the neighborhood streets to the summit ridge and back. It is one of the best-known natural landmarks on the entire upper Mississippi. The trail begins gently, working into the trees along the flank of the bluff. It is late September, and the woods are just starting to turn, with the first yellows showing in the canopy overhead. The path is packed dirt and broken rock, and it wastes no time finding the grade. Somewhere above us, through the leaves, there are glimpses of the limestone walls we will be standing on top of soon. For now, the river is hidden, but you can feel the valley opening up behind us as we climb. The oldest name for this place is He Mni Can, a Dakota name usually pronounced He Mni Can. It translates as hill, water, wood, 3 words that describe exactly what you find here: a hill of stone standing in the water with trees on its slopes. To the Meadow, Dakota, whose descendants live nearby today at the Prairie Island Indian community, this was never just scenery. The bluff was a spiritual center, a place woven into their way of life on this stretch of the river. The English name Barn Bluff came much later, from French traders who called the landform La Grange, meaning the barn. The climbing gets more serious now, with stretches of rough stone step and bare rock underfoot. This is a trail that rewards a steady pace, so we settle into one. Off to the side, the ground falls away far enough that the treetops below are at eye level. The morning is cool, but the work of the climb warms you quickly. Every switchback buys another few feet of the 400 we need. Long before any Europeans saw this valley, people were living here and burying their dead on the heights. Archaeologists date burial mounds on and around the bluff to roughly 900 to 1300 AD. The Dakota have said that they feel about this bluff the way other cultures feel about their cemeteries and their churches. That is worth carrying with you on this trail. It is a public park, and everyone is welcome, but it is also a burial ground and a sacred site, so visitors are asked to stay on the marked paths and treat the summit with respect. The trail levels for a while and runs along the base of a sheer rock wall. Up close, the stone is layered like the pages of an enormous book, banded in gray and tan. Swallows and swifts cut through the air along the cliff line. The path here is a narrow bench between the wall above and the drop below, and it makes you feel the true size of this rock. We are walking along the side of something that was old before there were fish in the sea. The valley this bluff stands in was not carved by the river you see today. At the end of the last ice age, an enormous meltwater lake called Lake Agassiz spilled over and sent a torrent south, a river geologists call Glacial River Warren. That flood was miles wide in places, and it did the heavy work of cutting the upper Mississippi Valley. At the height of the outflow, Barn Bluff stood as an island, with the great river tearing past on both sides. The channel on the far side eventually silted in, and the modern Mississippi settled into the northern channel, leaving the bluff attached to the town. We gain the shoulder of the bluff and the trail bends upward along its spine. The trees thin out, and for the first time there is open sky ahead instead of forest. The footing alternates between dirt, rock, and timber steps. Behind us, Red Wing is starting to arrange itself into a map of rooftops and church steeples. The last stretch to the ridge is steep enough to keep conversation short. The bluff is a layer cake of early Paleozoic rock. The lower slopes are Cambrian shale, siltstone, and sandstone, laid down on the floor of a shallow sea. The cap is Ordovician dolomite and sandstone, the hard layer that let the bluff survive while everything around it washed away. Movement along the Red Wing Fault lifted these beds about 130 feet, which is part of why the layers here stand so high. On top of it all sits a blanket of glacial drift and wind-blown silt, the soil the summit prairie grows in. And suddenly, there it is. The trail steps out onto rock and the whole river valley opens below us, the Mississippi broad and silver, braided with islands and backwaters. Barges and bridges look like toys from up here. Across the water, the Wisconsin bluffs mirror the ones we are standing on. It is the kind of view that stops you mid-stride, and we are not even at the top yet. The first published description of this bluff comes from Jonathan Carver, a colonial explorer who came up the Mississippi in 1766 and wrote about the landmark in his Book of Travels. Half a century later, in 1819, Major Stephen Long climbed to the summit during a government mapping expedition. Artists came too. In the 1840s, the soldier and painter Seth Eastman set the bluff and the Dakota village at its foot into a watercolor. For early travelers on the river, this rock was the landmark that told them exactly where they were. Up on the ridge, the trail runs through open grass with the world falling away on both sides. To the left, the river. To the right, the town, the valley, and farm country rolling south. The wind up here has nothing to slow it down, and the grasses move in long waves. This is some of the finest ridge walking in southern Minnesota. The town below takes its name from a line of Dakota leaders. The chief the traders knew was called Hupahujuda, a name describing a swan's wing dyed scarlet, which he carried as a symbol of leadership. He was also known as Tatankamani, meaning walking buffalo. White explorers and settlers who met him in the early 1800s came to know both the man and his village simply as Red Wing. When the American town was platted here in 1853, it kept that name, and it keeps it still. The summit is not bare rock but a hanging meadow, a remnant of native prairie riding 400 feet in the air. In late September, it is all golds and rust, big bluestem and goldenrod trading in the wind. Grasshoppers scatter ahead of our boots. It is strange and wonderful to walk through prairie while looking down at a river town's rooftops. Places like this once covered the region, and up here a piece of it survives. In the early 1800s, the Dakota village at the foot of this bluff was home to about 300 people. Bark lodges and gardens stood where the streets of Red Wing run today. Then came the treaties of 1851, in which the Dakota ceded most of southern Minnesota, and by 1853 the village had been moved from this place. It is a hard chapter, and an honest telling of this trail includes it. The Prairie Island Indian community, a short distance upriver, carries the connection to He Mni Can forward today. The trail draws close to the rim now, close enough that we keep a healthy margin. Below the edge, the cliff drops away to talus and treetops, and then the railroad line along the river. Freight trains slide past in miniature, and their horns arrive seconds late. The scale of the valley keeps rearranging itself the longer you look. We follow the rim east toward the far point of the bluff. In June of 1861, a thin and ailing Henry David Thoreau stepped off a steamboat in Red Wing. The author of Walden was traveling up the Mississippi for his health, on what became the last long journey of his life. He climbed Barn Bluff, and he sat at the summit and read his mail, with the river he had come so far to see spread out below him. Less than a year later, he was dead, at only 44. It is something to stand up here and share a view with him across the centuries. At the eastern point, the bluff narrows to a prow of rock hanging over the river bend. This is the summit moment of the hike, the full panorama, water on three sides of the view. Upstream, the river comes down from St. Paul. Downstream, it broadens toward Lake Pepin. We take our time here because views like this are the whole reason for climbing. Look at the bluff from the river, and you can still read its industrial scars. From the mid-1800s until 1908, quarrymen cut into He Mni Can for building stone, for railroad rip-rap, and for limestone to burn into lime. The stone helped build Red Wing and went upriver to St. Paul and Minneapolis. For roughly 40 years, the sound of blasting and stone hammers rang off these walls. The bluff we are walking on today is smaller than the one Thoreau climbed, because part of it was hauled away in wagons and rail cars. Along this stretch you can see where the quarrying happened, faces of rock too flat and too square to be natural. Rubble slopes below them have softened under a century of moss and saplings. It is a strange kind of monument, an absence carved into a hill. Nature has been patiently taking the site back ever since. The trail threads right through the history. At the base of the bluff's northeast corner stands the G. Carlson lime kiln, built into the slope in 1882. It worked like a giant stone oven that ran day and night, with temperatures inside reaching a couple thousand degrees. Quarried limestone went in the top, and burned lime came out below, bound for the mortar, plaster, basements, and foundations of a growing state. In the peak years, roughly 30 kilns operated around Red Wing. The Carlson kiln survived, and in 1976 it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. We leave the east point and begin working back along the far side of the loop. Descending shifts the work from lungs to knees, and the rhythm of the hike changes. The town side of the bluff is quieter, more forest, less wind. Through gaps in the trees, downtown Red Wing appears almost straight below. The trail switches down toward the shoulder where we will pick up the stairway. Red Wing's other famous export came out of the ground too. In 1877, the Red Wing Stoneware Company began turning local clay into crocks and jugs, and by the 1890s, the town's potteries were reported to be the largest operation of their kind in the nation. Farm kitchens across the Midwest kept butter and pickles in Red Wing stoneware. In 1936, the firm became Red Wing Potteries, and its wares are prized by collectors today. Stone from the bluff and clay from the valley, this landscape quite literally built the town. The descent runs down through oak woods on the city side of the bluff. Squirrels are busy in the leaf litter, laying in stores for the winter ahead. The grade is friendly here, and the miles come easily. Between the trunks, the rooftops keep rising to meet us. There is one more piece of history waiting on this side of the hill. By the early 1900s, the people of Red Wing had seen enough of their landmark blasted away. Citizens protested the defacing of the bluff, and with the lime industry fading, the quarrying was stopped in 1908. 2 years later, in 1910, the land was given to the city to be kept as a park. It was an early, local act of conservation, neighbors deciding that a mountain of stone was worth more standing than sold. Every hiker on this trail since has been collecting the interest on that decision. The trail delivers us to the head of a long concrete stairway pouring down the side of the bluff. From the top you can see the flights stacked below, ribboning through the trees toward town. Handrails, landings, and a lot of steps. This is the classic barn bluff descent. Knees ready, down we go. This stairway is pushing 100 years old. In 1929, the Red Wing Kiwanis Club led the effort that built a concrete stairway of about 450 steps up the bluff, so that everyone in town could reach the summit. It was a big enough event that the governor of Minnesota, Theodore Christiansen, came to dedicate it that August. Generations of Red Wing school kids, first dates, and Sunday walkers have counted these steps since. Restored and maintained, the Kiwanis stairway is still the front door of the bluff. Down the flights we go, the rhythm almost musical, step, step, landing, turn. The forest slides upward past us as the town grows larger through the trees. It is a completely different experience of the same hill, engineered and orderly where the summit was wild. A few climbers pass us heading up, earning their view one stair at a time. The valley floor rises to meet our boots. Keep an eye on the sky along these cliffs. Peregrine falcons, the fastest animals on Earth, can be seen riding the thermals off Barn Bluff, and the tall river cliffs of this valley are classic nesting country for them. The Mississippi below us is a flyway highway, and the Red Wing area has recorded more than 250 species of birds. Eagles patrol the channel in every season. The bluff is not just a monument, it is habitat. The bluff was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1990, but its most meaningful recognition came later. Working with the Prairie Island Indian community, the city restored the Dakota name, and the park is now officially He Mni Can Barn Bluff. In October of 2018, the community marked it with a ceremony and a hike up the bluff together. New signs on the trail now tell the Dakota story alongside the settlers' story. It took a century and a half, but the oldest name on this rock is spoken here again. Back at the bottom, we turn for one more look at the rock above the rooftops. Hill, water, wood. He Mni Can has been a sacred site, a landmark, a quarry, and a park, and it has outlasted every attempt to reduce it to just one of those things. If your travels ever bring you along the upper Mississippi, give this trail a morning and take the summit slowly and with respect. Thank you for watching. Follow for more of the trails of the world.